3d6 down the line.
Okay, that is episode 100 in the books. Very well done, guys. Lots of good info gleaned.
Oh man. Oh man.
How are we rolling so fast now? Like this is like I'm like we've been doing this for like 2 years, and all of a sudden, like the last 6-7 sessions, we're like we found all this stuff. We've like pretty much solved the Rhodesian.
Oh my God,
go ahead, Mike! You can do it. You can do it, Mike.
We pretty much solved the alien mystery.
There you go. Alien. There you go.
That works.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it is we're higher level. Some of it is we're a little bit on the ride the lightning mode a little bit, and some of it is that we're in areas that there's not. I mean, the mimic notwithstanding, who I have to say must be really hungry down there behind the wall of garbage that no one can. He's not having anything wander in. Poor fellow.
Yeah, how often do they have to eat? That's gotta be just a miserable life. We should have let him have Upior. Really,
yeah, we should.
I think it's just right.
A fun thing to have in a dungeon room without much more thought to it.
Yeah,
I have to admit that is the first mimic I have ever encountered in the wild in D&D.
There you go.
Same for
my
me.
entire playing career. That's it.
I've seen lurker above and trappers and lurker below and everything, but I have never actually run into a mimic before.
Yeah,
They're very
We've
nasty.
gotten some really, really good classic monsters in this, right? Like remember we had the gelatinous cube,
Oh man.
right? When we
Which, by
ran
the
straight
way,
into
John,
that
I
thing.
particularly like how you ran that because I did not recognize it as a gelatinous cube at first. I was very mystified about what was going on. That was very nice.
Was that in the
Yeah.
first level?
yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
Remember
When- It was on the
Debouche
Debouchement level
over by
on the other
Barrel
side of
Stack.
the. Yeah.
Oh right, yeah. I forgot about that. It was a long time ago. Yeah.
That was good stuff.
For the mimic, it was I was trying to. I had you guys roll. Two of you that were in the room, and I was rolling for basically a surprise. Like if you had rolled a 1 or a 2, you would have seen that the statue actually shifted a little bit in an unnatural way because it was not frightened, but discomfited by the continual light. It doesn't like light. It actually takes penalty to hit in AC. And so like there would have been just like the slightest little tip off that it was nothing. It wasn't quite as what it seemed, but you guys both failed it. So, you kind of walked right into it. Yeah.
Nice. Well, there you go.
There was a chance, but I tried the telegraph, but they're meant to be sneaky. So it's like, they're meant to be like gotcha monsters, you know what I mean? So,
right.
Yeah, it was great and really, really fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it is interesting. Like we're very much on target right now, and I think that's probably the reason why we're going through this so quickly. Not only do we have a clear goal in what we're trying to do and trying to find, we're not just like randomly exploring, looking for stuff. Right. If we were just kind of like, if we had blundered into this area not knowing that we needed this list of items, that trash pile, we would have spent a long time, I'm sure, digging in that trash, right? Trying to see where you could go up.
I don't think we would have gotten in here though, Matt, unless we went down the chasm and found it type thing, but without having found that key card in the Goblin Marketplace, which we bought 110 years ago, like 1,000 years ago, or just like 2 days in the game. It was like we've been carrying it around for quite some time, and that's what got us access past like the death robot, and everything has been snowballing since then.
Yeah, that was a key purchase.
But and think about it, like there are ways. I mean, we're clever. We had plans for fighting one of those robots, right? Maybe we could have, hurt it. Maybe not. Maybe we could have disabled it. It's conceivable that you could get past that with some kind of cleverness, end up in here with no cure or no pure reason why. Like you're just like looking around.
Sure.
Right. We could have fallen down and dug through the garbage and come in that way and got shot by the
That's very true.
By the auto gun, which would have been real bad.
That would have been bad.
But
go ahead. I was just going to say the interesting thing for me about the tablet that we found, which is identical to one of the relics, one of the what's the fancy word again for
regalia.
Regalia. I'm not English. So Don't say it. So it's identical to one of the regalia, and yet Akla says that it has no functionality unless it's plugged into a piece of equipment. So
I noticed the same thing. I mean, it's obviously old and alien and made out of something weird. It wouldn't be the first sort of, cargo cult kind of thing like that, where somebody's like, this is this amazing artifact. We don't know how it works, but it's definitely, if you own it, you're in charge kind of thing. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but it does make you wonder if there's some bit of tech that the Arcantians had access to that they were using the tablet on.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah.
I liked when you were asking Aklachav if it has any kind of a remote functionality. We probably got to open that line of questioning up a little bit more, because it's got to be like, if we can detect the other regalia with this pad, or if we can find out what the regalia is controlling or allowing whoever has it to operate something, that might be really important, but also it might be off mission. So,
yeah, I really just wanted to harass Rodney a little bit because I thought that'd be pretty funny.
It's Roger. Come on, it's Roger the Rapier.
Rodishvin, Roger, I don't know.
Come on, man. He worked hard to build this rep. You can't even get his name right.
I just don't care about him.
Do we want to assemble all the death bots and go kill the dragon?
There's so many things I want to do. But so this actually brings up something I kind of wanted to ask about, is like, how do I want to put this? All right. So I think it's pretty much openly discussed on our Discord now at this point that we're on the last delve. We're going to wrap this up. There'll be another game. And I know that we've sort of set our goals. We want to do the shuttle, right? We could go pretty off tangent, and decide, actually what we want to do is assemble all the robots and then take over Gobble Kingdom and then take out the dragon, and then get the shuttle. And so like, I got a question for John,
200,
which is, and so this is, I think it's an interesting question about table etiquette and about like, operating together as a gaming group and as a team, as friends and so on. Like, if the five of us decided to go completely rogue and continue the story beyond what you had conceived of this last delve as, how would you respond, John? Like, you play along, or be like, okay, guys, come on, I'm turning off the camera, we got to talk.
Yeah,
like, I know I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but I think it's a fair thing, like, because you have as much sort of responsibility to us as we have to you, if you know what I mean, right? Like, it's on us not to like completely screw up all of our own plans, and it's on you to help us play the game that we want to play, and it's a problem. If you see what I mean.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's like I said, Arden could go on forever. There will always be something interesting. So you have like we've discussed this, you have to call an end at some point.
You bring up an interesting point about etiquette, and this is something that happened to me yesterday. Ed, I went to a convention here in Colorado, and I was playing a rogue, and we were just going through a dungeon, and I was like, oh, we hear a weird noise up ahead. I have dark vision because we were playing Pathfinder anyway. And I'm like, I'll go scout up 35 feet ahead. And one of the other players who, I never met him before. I didn't know him. He's like, well, my monk's faster than yours, so you're not doing that because I don't want to split the party. And I was just kind of like, what? I was just like, he's like, I will prevent you from scouting ahead. And I'm just kind of like, man, this is not something that happens at your friend table. Or if it happens at your friend table, you throw Cheetos at the dude until he leaves you alone and lets you do your thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But it was like a weird, awkward moment and I haven't experienced it in like a really long time. And I'm just kind of like,
I've seen it.
You're that guy. I met you. You're that guy. I'm just kind of like, okay.
What'd you do?
I just kind of was like, I didn't know worries, man. It ended up not being a big deal. And I certainly wasn't going to make a big deal about it because I'm just like, it's a game and I'm going to be playing with this guy for an hour and 30 more minutes. And then I'm going to go away and never see him again. And it's all good. Get along to go along in that point, or go along to get along at that point. But it was just a bit jarring. And I'm like, table etiquette was kind of was like a thing there. And to your point about this though, Ted,
Right.
If you were deciding to go off rogue, right, and the rest of us were all kind of sitting here going, Ted,
Yeah.
Stink eye Ted.
Exactly. Right.
we would be we can't throw Cheetos at you because it's virtual. So I probably will just mail them to your house and then tell your children to throw them at you.
And they would happily comply. But I mean, it's like if I decide to do that, I'm like, no, absolutely, I have to kill the dragon. And you guys are like, no, we have to fly the shuttle to another planet and live there forever. That's a similar situation to what you were describing. I've just like broken off and I'm going rogue.
Mm-hmm. Where you're preventing us from doing the thing, right? Right. I will say though, to your point, there is a concern about that dragon seeing our ship flying away and then suddenly being like, no way, and coming after it.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Well, it is painted to look like another beast, right? Not that the dragon's not hyper intelligent or whatever,
it's
but
probably smart enough to know the difference. But yeah.
So the argument could be made to have the death robots go to Kraz's lair and murder him.
Yeah.
You can just give the command.
It's defeat him in honorable robot combat. That's a big difference. Now, the reason I was asking this question really is so I brought this up with you guys before we started playing tonight. For anyone out there who's listening, I was listening to a podcast on etiquette called "Were You Raised by Wolves?" And one of the questions that someone wrote in was that they had a gaming group. I think he said there was like 6 players or something like this, and they've been playing together for a long time. And I gathered it was probably a 5e or a similar type game. And they're playing long term, and there's a lot of, sort of free-form kind of world building and backstory building and all that kind of stuff. And the Dungeon Master had created an adventure that he wanted the players to go on. And you know how it is, right, John? You've spent a lot of time building your dungeon or prepping or whatever, and then the players do something completely not what you had planned. Mm-hmm. And in this particular case, the Dungeon Master called them on it and said, no, I made this, I think it was a cave of some kind. I made this cave and you're doing the cave. And the players were like, well, we really needed downtime. We had these other things we wanted to do. And so the player was writing in to ask about the sort of the etiquette of, when you've got a table full of players that want one thing and a dungeon master that wants another, how do you resolve that? And I thought it was very interesting because, to Mike's point, table full of friends who have gamed together before, this shouldn't be coming up as a problem. Table full of people who don't necessarily know each other very well, maybe that's a different story. Anyway, the Raised by Wolves people are not gamers. They'd played it once or twice themselves. And I thought they came up with a very fair idea, which is, sort of, you got to kind of agree on your ground rules and understand whoever, whatever, like this is how we do it. But there's an expectation to give and get on both sides. And they had a nice nuanced answer, particularly for someone who was not an expert in it. And I just thought it was really, it was an interesting conversation, not something that comes up on a, etiquette podcast very much is gaming table etiquette. Right. And maybe it was against etiquette for me to even bring it up and put John on the spot to say, what are you going to do, John? What are you going to do? We're going rogue. What are you going to do? Come on. I dare you. I double dog dare you to blow the whole planet up. Come on.
I think it's you see these questions asked all the time on RPG Reddit all the time. It's like, you just have to communicate to your players before the campaign starts. So like what the expectations are, even if it's like with friends, you still have to like let them know. It's like, this is a sandbox thing, this is a mega dungeon. Like I was very clear, like the game is in the dungeon, right? So it's like you have to approach it in good faith with that and not try to say like, what's over, what's to the north of Arden. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like you don't get to go there. I'm sorry. You just don't get to go. The game is here, And so you have to just kind of set those expectations. Now, if you don't set the expectations, then the players have every right to ask that what's north of Arden and attempt to go there.
I will never forget, you gave a hook, not a hook really, but it was outside of the Arden area. And you alluded to the fact that Richard had written about a ongoing war between the dwarven kingdoms and a bunch of, what are they called? Doppelgangers. Yeah. And I was like, that's really awesome. Like, I want to go figure that out. Well, and then I was like, I guess I'm going back to the hole.
We can talk more about that, like whenever we do a wrap up post Arden thing, but that thread is actually has ramifications within Arden So there is relevance to it. So it's good to know that it's not just like a throwaway thing.
That is stuck in my head. You must have mentioned that to me back when Gorn was like being created. I think it was like my first work character.
Yeah.
And I was just like, because it stuck with me because it was so evocative. I was like, that's awesome. Can you imagine like having a whole army of doppelgangers that can like mimic people's shapes and like, how do you fight those guys? And I was like, that would be awesome.
Terrifying.
Body snatchers, man.
I did the same thing with the Dolmenwood campaign too, which is like, yes, there is a larger world outside Dolmenwood, but the adventure was in the boughs of the so it's like if you can't go outside Dolmenwood except like the few hexes that are sort of surrounding the forest itself, and that
that's like leaving Narnia. You don't leave Narnia.
I mean, it's interesting as like somebody who's I'm the new kid in this group, right? I haven't played with you as long as you guys have played with each other. But one of the things that I've noticed, right? One of the things that I've noticed that is really, really cool is, there is this like clear expectations of boundaries, right? Like clear expectations of here's what we're doing and here's what we've agreed to do together. But at the same time, within that, anytime anybody has an idea, it very much kind of follows those improv rules, right? Like I go and do this, right? I was always impressed that everybody's like behind that person, right? Like when you're acting within the framework that we've all agreed to, and one person says like, I want to go scout ahead, or guys, we got to like the first time we jumped Carolet, right? Guys, let's jump him. We're all like, oh, okay, right? Like we were all in. We didn't agree or whatever, but it was the moment. It was the idea. Get her, Ray, right?
Yeah.
And we did it, and we backed each other up, and I thought that was just really, really cool. Yeah. And maybe that's it. Is like it's that play within. The area of like freedom and trust within your other players and what everybody's doing to kind of go crazy and back each other up, but within the framework that you've all kind of agreed upon to start with.
That's exactly right. Like that's why I don't feel bad about setting those boundaries for the campaign framework, because within that framework, there's an immense amount of player agency and freedom. Like, it's just a lot. Like Arden I had to do at least, I can't remember when we decided to do this, but where we were like, I need you guys to like give me a firm plan.
Pretty early
on. With Arden specifically, it's just so vast and things could go and because there's so much connection between different levels and stuff. Unlike Dolmenwood, where I can be pretty confident that I only need to look at like what's in around the like a hex flower basically around like your existing hex. It's like in Arden it can skip like so frequently, and so it's like I really needed you guys to give me a plan. And then with the expectations that you would attempt to stick to that plan as much as possible. That I think more or less succeeded whenever we started instituting that. There were slight divergences depending on like how things shook out, but in general, you guys were pretty good about sticking to the plan. So my point being is the biggest sticking to the plan thing is now this end run, right? So it's like I put forth all of my effort to prep that, knowing there's many different ways to approach it. The way that you're doing it is actually very, very effective right now, because all of the pieces you could probably see over the past couple of sessions, they're sort of falling right into place. It's like you couldn't read Radishva, but then you found the helm, and then
that was lucky.
And then it's like you didn't know how to get the astrogation. Like everything's just sort of like every problem that you had, you almost immediately then found the solution for it. And so like the whole picture of like Radishvan tech is sort of coming into focus. Where and now with the command tablet and the command bracelet, you have an immense amount of control over all this stuff now too, and you have the basis of knowledge to be able to fly that thing. So if you're checking off your list of things that will lead to the end game, you have the drive rod in the engine room. That's your key.
The next thing. Yeah.
Your problem with that, though, to get back to the specifics, is that you are not aware of any teleporter that takes you to the engine room, and you have no idea where it is, and neither does Akla Cha.
So that's kind of part of my point about, does the command tablet have the ability to access other areas, or does the point defense array thing, which has cameras everywhere, have cameras that might be able to show us where the engine room is, right?
I would bet if we go to the command bridge with the tablet, we can find records that say, after we landed in our phased whatever, we've been able to piece together where all these things are, and here's how to get to the engine room. There's got to be a way, because they were going there.
Yeah. I'm going to sidebar really quick because I wanted to circle back on something that Matt was talking about. And I think it's only fair to point out that I think playing a game on the scope of Arden has changed the way that we play as a group, because we didn't used to do like all these advanced plans, and we didn't necessarily handle it like an improv. I am incredibly guilty. Back when we were like an in-person group, and we used to gather at John's apartment, and I would circle the table during combat, and I would give people all kinds of advice about what they should do on their turn. And, you know, like I was definitely that dude. And Ted and I used to butt heads all the time because I'm like, that's inefficient, Ted. And Ted would be like, I don't care, you know, like we would butt heads all the time. But I think, and you can't say it's maturity because it wasn't really that long ago. I was a guy in my 40s. I should have been mature enough at that point. But I think the thing is I think number one, it's playing online has forced me and made me more aware of some of the behavior that I had. Right. I was listening to your adventure last weekend, Ted, and and it was me and John and you, and I could not shut up. Like I'm like talking the entire episode, and I was very irritated with myself. And I'm like, John is just in there very like, well, okay. You know, and I'm like, come on, John.
It's more me being quiet than you being loud, to be clear.
I think so. You know, I think so.
Yeah.
But you know, the thing about it is like it reminded me of my behavior back in the day. And I did feel a little bit bad about that. So
it's really interesting. That's a good point. I mean, I think some of it is that we, by changing our style of play to be, you know, less like miniatures on the tabletop, tactical. Okay, your 5-foot move, Ted. Why aren't you doing your 5-foot move and then using your 3rd level power?
Why are you not looking at your spells ahead of time, Ted?
Yeah. Yep. I admit the spell thing. That was my bad. I try not to be like that anymore. But I think we're not playing that kind of game anymore. We're playing a very different game. So some of it's that. Some of it is maturity. Some of it is, you know, because we are playing the kind of adventure we're playing, we've had to adapt consciously as well. I like the way we're playing it right now. But to Mike's point about, I wasn't being efficient. I was definitely in 5e. I was very much into playing the character, and it didn't matter if I wasn't the perfect killing machine. What mattered was that I had built this persona and I had my backstory and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I've been fine. I've survived this long with no backstory for Mort, and it's great. So
let's put that in context. You were not efficient in 3.0. You were not efficient in 3.5. You're not efficient in Pathfinder 1 or Pathfinder 2 or 5e. Like, I love you. But the thing is
now you kind of suck
in that statement.
No. I love you. Now that we're not doing tactical combat, that's the point, right? Like, we're not doing tactical mini combat. It's not a war game. And I'm happier. I got to say, I'm happier. I'm just like,
it's because you're relying mostly on your own intelligence and your own player skill. You know what I mean? I think that's what it comes down to, is like you find a lot of you find a lot of satisfaction in solving problems and finding cool things purely through just interacting with me, right? Like, it's just, you know what I mean? Like, you're not reliant on your character sheet. We know how this
you don't have to min-max your character to do something cool. Your character is barely anything. Right. It's you
already minned
to do something cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
we're all minned.
Yeah,
no maxing.
Like, literally, like, you're just
very min.
Your vehicles for exploration, for exploring the world. That's what the characters are. Mm-hmm. And then anything else that gets attached to those characters to flesh them out or give them marks is like icing. Right. It's just it's like cool. It's like you can lean into it, definitely, but that's stuff that sort of emerges again from the ongoing narrative and isn't pre-planned. And I know that there's another legitimate way to play games, but I vastly prefer this play style. I'm so glad that I got introduced to it.
Yeah, so. And I gotta say, I feel like I'm a better player now than I was back in the day. Like, I feel like this has been, like, the last couple of years with Arden has been like a masterclass in playing and thinking creatively rather than just being like this.
Yeah.
I agree. I think you could take a lot of the lessons that you learn from OSR's playstyle and apply them positively to any other sorts of role-playing games. They may not necessarily fit as well, but I just think like the skill you gain from playing these games from playing OSR games can be applied in a lot of different other places. You know what I mean? So.
Right.
I mean, what I got to say, I came into this, having played a bunch of, 5e, right? That was my entrance point coming into this. And it's really fascinating looking at it from that lens, because in this OSR style play, you're seeing this character develop and be shaped by this immediate environment, right? Like the person who this character is becoming is, you're in the part where you're in the backstory right now, right? Mm-hmm. Like this is the thing that shapes this character into who it is, rather than 2 pages or 5 paragraphs or whatever of stuff that you wrote before you even played.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
So you're building this character by play rather than building a character and then play.
Yes.
Right. Which I think is really, really fascinating. It's really fun.
That took me a long time to get my head around that aspect of OSR play too, because similar to the way that Mike used to be like heavy tactical and min-maxing and all that sort of stuff, I was the guy in the same games that Mike was playing. I was the guy that wrote like the immense amount of backstory. And I would never felt like the need to like share that with anybody, but to me it was like, it gives me a foundation. Like I really know, how to play my character, and I think there's something to that for certain types of games. Like I think like if you're playing a World of Darkness game, for instance, like that really is helpful. But but I would do it for like games like D&D where it's just wholly unnecessary. It's like, like no one
need
included
backstories for hooks. Like we're here. We're in Arden. There's no hook necessary on Mike's long lost grandfather, who turns out to have been the Arcantian general, or whatever. It's not going to happen. It's not in the story.
And you don't need any of it. And David would be the first one to tell you this too if he was here. He had to break early, by the way. Everyone, sorry, I forgot to say that at the top. Always the counter argument for using backgrounds is like you provide hooks for the DM, but now, a DM when asked that question would be like, oh yeah, I love it when the players make backgrounds for their characters. I got so much hooks, but what it does is it puts like a huge onus on the game master. It's like if the players are writing this stuff down, that means they want you to use it, and so now you've got like 4 or 5 players who've all got different hooks that are all completely unrelated, and the onus is on you to bring up those hooks in some sort of meaningful way for them to feel satisfied. And if you don't, you're somehow labeled as like a poor dungeon master because you didn't engage with their backstory. And I was like, man, you're absolutely like, that's bullshit, man. Like this is just absolutely unnecessary,
Well, you guys know the cliche, how like most people's D&D players are all like orphans and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I remember being a kid and very much being like, everyone I know is dead. Everyone, like, because I did not want the DM to be like, I've kidnapped your sister. She's in the dungeon. Like I was like, I didn't want to give him that rope to hang me.
I always used to do that. I used to.
And a lot, I guess some people enjoy that, but that was never my thing. I was like, everybody I know is dead. But I think that really, that really depends on the game that you're playing. And like, I love a good World of Darkness game. I'm never gonna slam those guys. I think it's fun, but it's fundamentally just a different experience and a different type of game to play.
100%.
And it's great when Mage 5e comes out. I'll buy it. It'll probably sit on my shelf with the other ones, waiting for you guys to come around and let me run it, but you won't let me do it, and it's fine.
I've got almost a complete full spread of Mage the Ascension line, like right here. You can't see it, but it's I got mad love for that. But there's a reason why the game master of that game is called a storyteller, right? And it works for World of Darkness, but don't come up to me and tell me you're the storyteller of a D&D game, or you're not going to be playing at my table. I'll tell you that much. Yeah.
Well, I have used that storyteller idea as it would, because Matt and I teach the kids to play with them. To talk to the parents, I tell them we're telling a story, and I've used that kind of language to communicate with them about it, because some of them, being my age, remember when Dungeons and Dragons and the whole satanic panic and all that kind of thing. They don't want to hear, well, we're going to fight demons. That's not the thing they like.
Sure.
They want to hear that we're collaboratively building a story and creating an adventure together. And it's good language for that. In fact, what the kids actually want to do is, buy chickens and kill everything they see and do weird shit like that. Yes. So, but it is have a little love for the phrase storyteller. It's a pretty good phrase. Yeah. I like it,
But it is but it's not like in D&D or these kinds of games, like the GM is not the storyteller. Like you're absolutely right when you describe to the parents, like what we're doing is collaborative storytelling. A story is coming out of what we're doing, but it's an emerging story, right? It's not,
sure. That's what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a set story that the DM has and then gets butthurt whenever the players decide to go off the path. And he planned like 12 dozen super detailed battle mats with terrain and stuff like that. And all the players are like, I'm going north instead of south, when all your encounters were south. That's the kind of thing that just leads to bad feelings and resentment. And feeling like you're a lesser player or a lesser GM or something like that. It's like all based around the notion that the GM is like unfolding a story that the players are experiencing. It's like, no, you're unfolding the story together and the GM is experiencing it at the same time as just an arbiter of the world, I find it just much more satisfying. Dare I say, like, if you do it any other way, you're doing bad, wrong, fun.
Well, let me ask you this though, John, because the other thing that the GM has to do is they have to react on the fly and they got to make things up on the fly. And then at that point, are you not abdicating your role as an arbiter? Like, if I decide to go south instead of go north, and you don't have anything planned, but you are running a sandbox game. I mean, you have to kind of be able to wing stuff, right? So at what point are you leaving behind, I'm just an arbiter of the world around me and I'm actually generating content for you?
Well, then I would rely on, in that case, like if you put me on the spot right there, I would do one of two things. One, I would just pull out random tables and just start procedurally generating things. That's the best way to improvise, like right then and there, and then everyone's pretty happy because I'm surprised, you're surprised, that whole thing. Or I would just say, listen, what I had prepared tonight is not north. It's like, if we want to continue playing tonight, you need to go south. If you really want to go north, that's totally fine, but we're going to have to break for the night. I'm going to have to prep some stuff for the north, and then we'll play next session with that. That would be the right way to go about it.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think most players at that point would be like, no, we'll just keep playing. We'll go the other way. I think people would rather do that than just, 86 the session.
You just got to be honest. Be like, I don't have anything planned. I mean, like, if you guys are willing to like do some rolls on some tables, then we can keep going. But otherwise, we have to stop, that sort of thing.
You're saying you're prepared for us to go after the dragon unexpectedly, is what it sounds like.
If you want to change it up, you'll have to let me know. But one way or the other.
I think, Ted, all we got to do is, like, when we're getting on a ship and we have all of our robot minions lined up in front of us, we just say, here's his lair. Our last command to you is go forth and destroy that dragon. And just leave.
Cool.
We do have to quit because it's getting late, but just one last thought to cap it off. Related to like focusing on the end game is, you want to think, because the end game is going to happen. It's just going to happen. Like, Arden is going to end. We're going to end this campaign. It's going to happen soon. So, given that that's the fact, you need to come up with the most dramatic possible ending and most satisfactory ending that you could possibly dream of, and shoot for that. Now, to me, blasting off in a shuttle into outer space in a fantasy game is a pretty freaking cool ending. And it is worthy to shoot for. So that's fine. But if you have another dramatic ending that you want to shoot for, now is the time to tell me. Like not right now until Detox, but like on the Discord. But that's what you want to shoot for. You don't want to think of something that's like that can continue Ardenville for a little while longer, that sort of thing. You want to think of like something that's like a dramatic, like, fiend at the end, curtain drops. That's it.
We land in the middle of Gosterwick, grab Wolford's girlfriend, and then take off for space.
Guys, what about the wedding? Come on, we can have a big wedding.
This is what I'm talking about. See,
it's just like the Wolford and Freitas the Stern.
We could have a medal ceremony where Lady Alexia gives us all like medals, like in front of like all the people. Like,
medal.
Yeah, there you go.
And then David stabs her in the throat. Six separate Tyrannus.